Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Today, let me tell you a story of the people who have suffered so much and how dangerous those who have been wronged are. The tale of the Shadow Rift and its people begins in a region of absolute darkness that scholars call the Demiplane of Shadow. At the heart of this dark realm lived a malevolent creature of great evil and powerful magic named Gideon. In an effort to promote his evil ways, he sought out a race of beings to claim as his own. Casting his net into the multiverse, he drew in the Elf, an elf-like race from the ancient world unknown to men. Because of his growing affinity for the elven race who served him for centuries, Gideon infused them all with the essence of shadows, turning them into Fae. In the mind of the sinister sorcerer fiend, this action should have made his slaves eternally thankful to him. They, however, did not appreciate his terrible gift. Still, this newly created Shadow Elves lacked the knowledge and power to oppose their master. On the day of this terrible transformation, a pair of twins were born to the future heir named Arak and his bride Fingala. They were named Maeve and Lot, the first true Shadow Elves. Their mother unfortunately died in childbirth. For uncounted years, the Shadow Elves toiled endlessly to further the power and plans of Gideon, the Twilight. Though the time, however, they hungered to regain their freedom and leave behind this realm of endless night. In time, their chance came. Gideon grew bored with his own realm and sought to conquer new lands. When the twins turned 50, he instructed his seneschal, Arak the Earl King, to begin the construction of the magnificent portal known as the Obsidian Gate. But unknown to Gideon, Arak plotted against him and keyed the device so that the gate would shut down once his sword or crown passed through the far end. Thus, when the great day came, Gideon watched with pride as Arak mastered the invasion force before the great gate. Only gradually did it dawn upon him that the vast host passing in the portal was too great for an invading army. Piercing through the complex illusions woven by the Shadow Elves wizards, he perceived with dismay that not only the elite soldiers but the entire people were pouring for the portal. He rushed to stop them, plunging into the gate at the heels of the final Fae to dart across the border, only to be confronted by Arak himself. There, while his people fled behind him down the long transdimensional tunnel, the Earl King did battle with his people's greatest enemy. The skills honed by decades of practice that the Shadow Fiend had fought were to be used in the planned invasion were now put to work, holding him back. Far ahead, Lot and Maeve led the exodus until at length they reached the far end and emerged into the demiplane of Ravenloft, a domain of dread to most others, but near paradise to them. While they guarded the gate, more and more people poured through until only Arak himself remained still locked in a mortal combat with Sorcerer Fiend. Somehow, Arak managed to drive Gideon back enough to run for the gate. However, as soon as the Earl King reached the portal, Gideon lashed out, vaporizing the Shadow Elf instantly. Lot stood dumbfounded, while Maeve reached out and grasped the regalia, pulling it into Ravenloft and closing the gate. In memory of their lost leader, the Shadow Fae took a new name, the Arak. In 575, the domain of Arak materialized to the northeast, with the Shadow Elves hidden deep underground. Over the course of the following decades, Arak built themselves an underground kingdom. Here, beneath the tortured land, they carved out a realm not unlike that they had long ago in the demiplane of shadows. But here, they ruled as they saw fit, with no tyrannical fiend commanding their every action. Arak was also home to several human towns, and occasional encounters occurred, and stories spread throughout the lands. Some spoke distrusting of a beautiful queen with skin pale as snow, while others whispered of a dark prince who tamed the very shadows to act as his spies. Not long after Arak's founding, 3 fugitive drow had made their way to it. These exotic elves were made welcome by Lot and joined his unseelie court, soon rising to positions of power. Their leader and outcast priestess of love introduced the worship of the spider goddess. The new faith spread rapidly through the more depraved fae, who treated it as an amusing decadence. Alarmed by the disregard of the law of Arak, which forbade elves killing each other, and distrusting their growing power, Lot took steps to suppress the new religion. A bitter power struggle ensued between the Prince of Shadows and Tristessa, the Shadow Elf who was now High Priestess of the cult, from which Lot emerged triumphant in 588. Ultimately, Lot broke the law of Arak and staked Tristessa and her newborn baby to the outer slopes of Mount Lament, where they were killed by the sun's rays. As they died, a massive and violent sandstorm suddenly roiled to life in Arak's mountain passes. By the time the storm died out, all the surface life in Arak was destroyed. The storm even altered Arak's landscape, transplanting Mount Lament miles to the west to form the domain of King, the domain that Tristessa was awarded with. Both of these desolate regions were deemed cursed and have been shunned by sensible travelers ever since. Nothing more is known of the Arak until 740. Apparently, the Obsidian Gate was a prison for the sorcerer fiend, ever since Arak appeared. During the Grand Conjunction, Gideon tried to escape, an effort that tore the Fae civilization from its beds beneath Arak and dragged it to where it lies now. In this cage, the Twilight found he could force his mind into our reality. He began sending dreams to Lot, appearing to him as Arak, the Earl King. He convinced Lot that Arak was alive and trapped in the gate, having driven the sorcerer fiend back to the plane of shadow. Lot began an 11-year search for the surface lands for the regalia of Arak, which had been scattered in the Great Upheaval and was needed to reopen the portal. He managed to assemble most of the regalia and then tricked a group of mortal adventurers into getting the crown of Arak from Maeve. Then he opened the Obsidian Gate. Exactly what happened at the peak of the Darkened Heights is unknown. The Twilight almost managed to escape and was only prevented from doing so by the same mortals Lot had used as pawns. Lot was crippled by the sorcerer fiend, every bone in his body broken. The Ancilia went into eclipse as the other Fae realized the depths of Lot's betrayal. As disgruntled members started roaming the core in far greater numbers, searching for ways to ease Lot's pain and escaping the disapproval of Seelie Fae. This development seemed to account for a far larger presence of the Shadow Fae in the lands around the Rift over the last 7 years, when before the Great Upheaval they were almost unknown. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. Shadow Rift has many secrets that we will uncover together, but for now, as always, take care while crossing the mists.